Welcome to Space Matrix. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates. The Trump administration's new tariffs sent shockwaves through global trade, targeting imports, especially from China. For Amazon, whose business thrived on cheap, fast imports, this was a direct threat. Suddenly, products that were profitable one day became expensive the next, forcing Amazon to rethink its entire supply chain. The company faced a choice: absorb the costs and lose profits, or pass them to customers and risk sales. Every product category was at risk, from electronics to clothing. The timing was disruptive. Amazon was expanding rapidly, promising faster deliveries, and now had to pivot. The company's leaders realized resilience and adaptability were now as important as speed. Behind the scenes, Amazon launched a massive effort to reroute and resource its supply chain. This was a high-stakes global chess match, with decisions in Seattle affecting sellers, competitors, and everyday shoppers. While the headlines focused on politics, Amazon quietly began a multi-billion-dollar supply chain overhaul. The tariff storm had arrived, and Amazon was determined to navigate it, reshaping American commerce in the process. The stage was set for a supply chain revolution. A tariff is a tax on imported goods, designed to make foreign products more expensive. When the US imposes a 25% tariff on, say, Chinese TVs, the importer pays that extra cost, not the foreign manufacturer. This means American companies like Amazon face higher costs on millions of products. They must either accept lower profits or raise prices for consumers. Tariffs are collected at the border and the financial burden falls on US businesses. The goal is to protect domestic industries, but the immediate effect is higher costs for importers. For Amazon, these costs threatened its low-price promise and forced a search for alternatives. Companies began looking for suppliers in countries not subject to tariffs or considered moving production. Tariffs weren't just a political talking point, they were a direct financial challenge. The result? A scramble to rethink how products get from factory floors to your front door. The tariff era forced a new map for global supply chains. Amazon responded to tariffs with a sweeping overhaul of its supply chain. The company diversified, shifting production from China to countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico. Vietnam quickly became a major hub for Amazon's private label goods. Amazon also rerouted shipments, using ports in Houston and New York instead of just the West Coast. Some products even traveled through Europe to avoid tariffs and congestion. Third-party sellers, who make up half of Amazon's sales, were encouraged to follow suit. Amazon invested in its own logistics, planes, ships, and freight, to gain more control and flexibility. The goal: a resilient, distributed network less vulnerable to political shocks. This was more than tariff avoidance, it was a quiet logistics revolution. Amazon's new supply chain could adapt quickly to any disruption. The company was building a smarter, more agile global network. Amazon's supply chain pivot triggered a $13 billion shift in imports in just 1 year. Goods once sourced from China now flowed from Vietnam, Mexico, and beyond. This wasn't a minor adjustment, it was a fundamental reordering of how products entered the US ports like Houston and Savannah saw surges in traffic, requiring new investments and jobs. Third-party sellers, many reliant on China, faced tough choices: adapt or risk collapse. Some found new suppliers, but the transition was costly and complex. The ripple effect created winners and losers across Amazon's vast ecosystem. The tariffs didn't bring manufacturing back to the US, they redrew the map of globalization. Capital and production simply shifted to new countries. The US supply chain became more diverse but also more complex. The $13 billion figure shows how quickly global business can adapt. Tariffs didn't end globalization, they just changed its shape. Amazon led the way, but every major company scrambled to adapt. Retailers like Walmart and Target sent teams across Asia, seeking alternatives to China. Iconic brands, Hasbro, iRobot, Apple, moved production to Vietnam, India, and Mexico. Even Google and furniture giants shifted supply lines despite the challenges of replicating China's scale. Fashion brands like Gap and Steve Madden accelerated moves to new manufacturing centers. The result: a widespread migration of production, not back to the US, but to other low-cost countries. Supply chains proved flexible, always seeking the lowest cost and least resistance. The China Plus One strategy, keeping some operations in China but building a second base elsewhere, became the new norm. The tariffs sparked a global game of musical chairs for manufacturing. The corporate world learned adapt fast or fall behind. These global shifts hit home for shoppers and workers alike. For consumers, tariffs often meant higher prices. Costs passed down from companies like Amazon and Walmart. Some products disappeared or became scarce as supply chains adjusted. Made in Vietnam and Made in India labels became more common. Shipping delays and shortages reflected the growing pains of new supply routes. For American workers, the impact was mixed. The hoped-for boom in US factory jobs didn't materialize. Most production moved to other countries, not back home. However, new jobs emerged in logistics, ports, trucking, and warehousing, especially in cities like Houston and Savannah. Some U.S. manufacturers reliant on Chinese parts faced higher costs and layoffs. Farmers were hit by retaliatory tariffs, making exports harder. The global supply chain is about more than products. It's about people's livelihoods. Every shift in trade policy ripples through the economy, affecting lives in unexpected ways. The trade war permanently changed how companies think about supply chains. The era of relying on one country, especially China, is over. The future is about resilience, diversified, flexible networks that can weather any storm. China plus one is evolving into China plus many, with production spread across Asia, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. Technology, AI, automation, and real-time data will make supply chains smarter and more agile. Regionalization is rising. Companies are sourcing closer to home, especially in Mexico and Latin America. This shortens shipping times and reduces risk, even if it doesn't bring all manufacturing back to the US. The new model balances global efficiency with regional security. Amazon and others will keep refining their logistics, controlling more of the journey from factory to front door. For consumers, this means more stable supplies, but not always the lowest prices. The supply chain shakeup was a wake-up call. Now commerce is being rebuilt for survival in an unpredictable world.